Hi everybody, this is Property with Leonard and welcome to another episode. Now on this channel we discuss property, finance and investments. Now please note that none of my videos constitutes as financial advice, but if you are looking for financial advice, please speak to an accredited and registered financial advisor. Now an offer to purchase is exactly what the name suggests. It's an offer to purchase, and in this case, a property. It is a legal and binding document, and you as the buyer cannot simply change your mind and get out of the deal without incurring some repercussions, of course. Now, once you have signed the OTP or the offer to purchase, you cannot withdraw from the deal on the grounds that you didn't read the document or signed it without understanding what it entailed. That won't work. And that is why it is important to take time to acquaint yourself with the terms in the contract and understand the finer details. Now, for example, if there are any suspensive conditions to the sale of the property, the details thereof, this is very important, must be written into the contract in full to avoid any misrepresentation. A good agent will spend as much time as needed explaining everything in the agreement to buyers and sellers. And there should be a separate appointment between a buyer and the agent and the seller and the agent, where each clause is read through and explained, as I mentioned, in detail. Before signing, this all should happen before signing the offer to purchase. Now, whether you are, as I mentioned, the buyer or the seller, and this goes for any other legal document as well, you should always be sure that you understand the terms of the contract. If you have any doubts about what is in the agreement, instead of just signing it because you might feel pressured to do so, take the contract away with you and discuss it. You can either discuss it with your attorney or someone else who understands what it says and can explain the terminology to you. Never sign any document that have gaps in it, even if in this case your estate agent says that it will be filled in later for whatsoever reason. This is not the correct legal procedure and cannot constitute a complete contract, and you are at risk. In general, you need to check documents carefully before signing them. I just thought that before I dive into today's episode, just to firstly explain the whole OTP or offer to purchase to you, so that we are all, both of us, are on the same page here. So the question that I want to answer today in this episode is, how long is an offer to purchase or an OTP valid? Now, buying a new house is an incredibly exciting undertaking, more so if it is your first time. However, this is the warning here. This could easily be turned into a very unpleasant experience if you are not careful or are not fully aware of the procedures and pitfalls, given that this process can be lengthy and frustrating. It very seldom goes according to plan. I mean, after finding your dream home and submitting the offer to purchase, it becomes somewhat of a waiting game to see if the seller will accept the offer, even if it is at full asking price. Because apart from the price, there are other conditions like, date of registration, the occupation date, that the seller might not agree with. Some sellers might even get greedy and suddenly want more for their property, and this is especially true if your offer is the first one at full asking price and it is within 24 hours of listing the property. Some sellers might perceive this as an indication that they are undervaluing their property, meaning they could get more for it. Nevertheless, when it comes to the offer to purchase, the OTP, knowing how long an offer remains valid can remove some of that uncertainty. The deadline date for the seller to accept the offer should be clearly stipulated in the OTP agreement. Now, I have had numerous clients over the years who would be blissfully unaware of some basic conditions of the offer to purchase that they've agreed upon by signing the OTP, because they were either, as I mentioned earlier, too excited to buy the house or scared to ask the agent for some clarity. Sometimes, and this might sound ridiculous, they don't even know what they've signed. They have no idea. The point here is, once this date on the OTP, the offer to purchase, has come and gone, should the seller not sign the agreement in time, the OTP will become null and void. And it sometimes happens that there is no date stipulated on the OTP. And in this case, the OTP will be valid for what is termed as a reasonable period. And that's open to interpretation, as you might guess. And trust me, you don't want that. It is best to try and avoid this situation by stipulating clearly the due date. Otherwise, it can become, as I mentioned, a very drawn out situation that can make things, and it can definitely make things uncomfortable. There are, however, other ways for an OTP to expire or lapse. I'm not sure if you are familiar or heard the term suspensive conditions or 72-hour clause. For example, let me make an example here. If you buy or made an offer to buy a house pending a suspensive condition, and a common one is the sale of the buyer's property, meaning that the buyer, which might be you, can only buy the property that they are interested in upon the successful sale of their property. Even if the buyer gets approved by the bank, that means that whoever purchased the buyer's property, if they are applying for a bond, their final bond approval would suggest that the suspensive condition have been fulfilled, and a copy of that final bond approval. This is now the bond approval of, let me just illustrate it in a simple way. So let's say you are the buyer. You are buying a property, but you need to first sell your property. You can do that, but the only way this would be a successful sale is if whoever buys your property gets a bond on your property. And only then, even though your bond has been approved to buy this property, this will only be deemed as a successful sale once whoever is buying your property also gets his or her final bond approved. A copy of that final bond approval should be presented to the seller or the seller's attorney, the transferring attorney. And this is even the case, even if it's a cash sale, the full purchase price needs to be paid into either the agent's or the attorney's trust account. So just to recap, if a buyer puts in an offer on a property subject to the sale of their property, it is firstly possible to do so, and those of you in the know would completely understand this concept, knowing that it is possible. But believe me when I say that there are a lot of people who simply don't know this. They can actually buy another property subject to the sale of their property. Because to some people, and get this, their logic dictates that you cannot sell your house if it's not fully paid up yet, meaning that they have settled their mortgage bond in full. And I don't blame them. And on that point, as long as you sell for more than you owe the bank, which doesn't always happen, but that's a video for another day. So let me just move on from this point. The seller will sometimes accept the offer to purchase with the 72-hour clause in the agreement, which basically means that the seller can continue marketing the house. If they receive a better offer, the buyer will then have 72 hours to complete the purchase of their property. And in my example, this will mean that the buyer needs to fulfill the suspensive condition by successfully selling their property. And if they fail to finalize that sale, the OTP becomes null and void, and the seller is allowed to accept other offers. Other ways for an OTP to become invalid is if the seller rejects the offer, or if either the seller or the buyer dies before the offer is accepted. My advice to you as the buyer is to be absolutely sure of a home before signing the agreement. It is a legally binding document, so you cannot simply change your mind and get out of a deal without incurring any repercussions. It is also very important that you have your finances in order before signing the offer, because once the seller accepts the OTP, and I've done numerous videos where I cover this point in detail and at length, and I'll leave a link to my buyer's advice playlist in the description below, or you can just click on the banner on top. It should take you there, and I would advise that you go watch it. You need to understand, as the buyer, you will be held liable to come up with the necessary funds to go through on that offer. So make sure that you have the funds up front to cover some of the immediate costs, such as transfer cost, bond registration cost, moving cost. We sometimes don't even think about it. And or if there are any immediate repairs that needs to be done, etc. In conclusion, make sure that you understand the conditions and clauses of the offer to purchase, or the OTP. Read through it, ask questions, familiarize yourself fully. Don't be guided by the fear of missing out, and then you end up in a sticky situation that will cost you time and money. And if you have any further questions on this topic, or anything else for that matter, make sure that you join this channel, because as a member of this channel, there are additional perks, and I always have some additional advice and specific guidelines to those of you who are members of my channel. And you can join by clicking the join button below and follow the prompts from there. There's a monthly cost, of course, but I promise you it will be worth your while. There's also a thank you button if you really appreciate my content and would like to financially contribute to this channel, which I highly appreciate. And thank you to those of you who are already contributing. You really motivate me to make more quality content and to help you make sound financial decisions. Thank you so much, everybody. And yeah, before I go, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Those things are good for the YouTube algorithms, and that way we would grow and we would be able to reach more people who you and I both know would be able to benefit from the contents of these videos, and specifically here in South Africa. Now, I have a global audience, which I'm also very grateful for, but I mean, this is specifically from a South African perspective, and I really appreciate when you guys do that. Like, share, and subscribe. And subscribing, two things. Firstly, it is absolutely free. It doesn't cost you a cent. And secondly, as you know by now, it's really easy. You can just click on that subscriber button in the bottom right hand corner of your screen, and please remember to hit the all notifications, and that way you would be notified and you won't miss out whenever I upload new videos. Thank you so much, everybody. I see you in the next episode. Stay blessed.